Hello, I hope everyone is doing well. So I've got a guide, 5 different ways to make money using combat on your pure. I know some people will say that it is more efficient to make the money on a high level main, doing something like Slayer or Zora, and then transfer that money to your pure. That is a better use of time. However, I think there's a lot of enjoyment in the journey of building your pure and training it and making money yourself. There also may be some people out there who don't have good mains, or they have mains that are very mediocre and aren't able to kill Zora and aren't able to kill top Slayer monsters for good profit. So hopefully they may be able to find this helpful. So for all of these methods, I'm going to be using relatively cheap gear. I'm using just 90k worth of stuff here. And my first choice is Chaos Druids down here in level 1 and 2 Wilderness below the Edgeville dungeon. Now, these are one of my longtime favorites. However, unfortunately, with herb prices dropping, these are much less effective than they used to be. However, I thought maybe they were worth a mention on this. So from these Chaos Druids, you can expect to make about 200k per hour, depending on your stats. And you should also get some decent experience in either strength or range, whichever you are choosing to fight with. So 200k per hour really is not very good. So moving on to my next option, which is Green Dragons, you can see I'm only using 30k worth of gear. This is why it drives me so crazy when people stand there in the GE and beg for money to rebuild. Honestly, go loot for 5 minutes, you'll get a magic short bow and a few arrows and kill one inventory of Green Dragons, and you'll be right back on track to rebuilding. Green Dragons have long been used as a money-making source. You do have to be careful because they are in the wilderness. Just make sure you have a teleport ready to go. So the amount of money you make here, as with anything, depends on your stats. You should expect somewhere between 300 and 500k per hour, even using pretty modest gear. Up next is Brutal Black Dragons. Now, it would be helpful to have things like Blowpipe and Necklace of Anguish, but for the purposes of this video, I'm using minimalist gear. It does take a couple 100k even using that because you'll want Diamond Bolts and Ruby Bolts enchanted to speed up your kills. One thing you can do here to save money is in between kills, run up to this altar that is just right outside the dungeon to recharge your prayer. You'll want to make sure you have a super anti-fire potion and protect from magic on at all times. There's a 62. That is the reason for bringing those Ruby Bolts. What I like to do is start out with the Ruby Bolts E and kill the dragon to about half health and then switch to the Diamond Bolts enchanted. Ruby Bolts will do up to 1/5 of the dragon's remaining hit points, which can be extremely helpful on a monster like this with very high hit points. Brutal Black Dragons are not a very good option for people with really low range. I have 99 range, so of course you don't need it to be that high, but I wouldn't recommend this for people with, say, only 70 range, as your kills will take quite a long time and you will not get very many kills per hour and therefore will have limited potential for profit. With my stats, I can expect to make between 4 and 500k per hour without getting any special drops. Last summer I did make a video, loot from 1000 Brutal Black Dragon kills, so I'll put the link to that in the description in case anyone wants to check out what kind of loot you can expect from 1000 kills or kind of what is average from these guys. Up next is something that I kind of have a love-hate relationship with, and that is Lava Dragons up in the Lava Dragon Isle in the wilderness. I have made a fair amount of money up here and a good amount of magic experience killing these guys. However, it's really frustrating when you get a full load, especially if you bring a looting bag and fill that up and then you get killed up here, which will happen because it is multi-combat and it is deep wilderness. Clans love this place because there are oftentimes people killing these things. So this is not something that I would recommend doing during peak times. And also, if it is something you're going to do, I would recommend banking with some frequency. Don't spend an hour up here, fill up a looting bag, and then die, because that just kind of sucks. You can expect to make somewhere around 350k per hour on these guys. That, of course, depends on your magic level and your spell of choice. Whatever you do, use a fire spell. That is the weakness of these guys. If you want to go the cheap route, you can use Mind Runes. The kills will take quite some time, but your overhead cost is essentially nothing. I'm using Blood Runes, which are more expensive, but I am ultimately trying to grind out 99 magic, so I really want that experience. A good option that combines effectiveness and affordability is to use Chaos Runes with Chaos Gauntlets from the Family Crest quest. Combine those with a Smoke Battle Staff, and you will be able to hit 16s with Firebolt, which is the same as Fire Blast using Death Runes, but for less than 1/3 the cost. My final method here is to kill Aviansies in the Wilderness God Wars dungeon. This is something that I feel like might be overlooked. I haven't seen very many people up here, and I've done this quite a few times. You will need protection from each of the 4 gods here. So I'm using a Robe Top, a Mitre, a Zamorak Book, and a Pendant of Armadal. It is also important that you have level 40 Prayer, otherwise the Aviansies will tear you apart. In order to access this God Wars dungeon, you need to have either level 60 Agility to squeeze past a boulder, or level 60 Strength to push one aside. The benefit to killing Aviansies up here in the Wilderness dungeon is that the adamant bars that they drop are 4 at a time, and they are noted. Aviansies also drop in sold Aviansie heads, as well as Rune Dagger's Poison, which may be worth picking up. It is also important to note that they come in many different levels, and it may be beneficial for you to kill the lower level ones, as they die much quicker. I was able to make about 400k per hour profit just using a rune crossbow with broad bolts. You have to be careful up here because it is in the wilderness and it is multi-combat. However, it is below level 30, so as long as you have a Ring of Wealth or an Amulet of Glory, you should be able to teleport at the sign of danger. That is all I have for this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.